Coming up next, the interview you've all been waiting for years. Hell, I've been waiting for it for years. I finally got him. The clown prince of music, the king of musical parody, and he tells us so many great stories next in an exclusive interview, from when he first started playing the accordion to the song he recorded in a public restroom because the sound was just so good. He would become one of the most requested stars on radio at the time. And then, as a virtual unknown, he got the #1 legend in the world to approve his song parody. And he became an overnight sensation that's been a rite of passage for every generation, I'm telling you. And all in all, he's exactly as you'd think he is. Nicest guy in showbiz. Up next, an exclusive interview with him and reaction from many of the artists that he's parodied. It's a really cool episode coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you were a master Uno or Old Maid card player back in the day, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below by clicking on the red button and click the notification bell. Also check us out on Patreon and our merch below. Oh man, I'm excited to bring you another landmark episode from our series Revelations, where featured artists reveal rare stories about their biggest songs, biggest albums, along with fascinating insight about their careers. Oh boy, this installment of Revelations is really cool. We have the king of musical comedy, the foremost satirist of pop culture overall, and he plays a mean accordion, right? Mr. Weird Al Yankovic. I've been wanting to do this interview for a long time. You know, there's just certain pop culture institutions that will forever be passed down to every generation until the end of time. Talking about like the Beatles, Mad Magazine, the original Star Wars, Saturday Night Live, The Simpsons, Seinfeld, rock and roll, Marvel and DC Comics. And you know, Weird Al is definitely one of those institutions. Everybody loves Weird Al. In fact, Weird Al is in a very exclusive club of musicians who really never have to worry about being forgotten by any of the coming generations, because he'll just always be relevant. I mean, as the king of musical parody, he's the only iconic artist that I never had a chance to share with my own kids. All 4 of my kids found him on their own. And, you know, that's very appropriate since Weird Al is truly a youthful rite of passage. But the deal is, he never goes out of style, no matter how old we get. And there just aren't a lot of musicians you can say that about. It's because we're always looking for his satire on songs. And my introduction to Al was in '84 when I heard Eat It for the first time. I remember I begged my parents to take me to the mall 40 minutes away from Blackfoot, Idaho to buy it. Not to mention the many chores I had to do in order to earn that money to buy that. It was one of the earliest musical purchases that I made, on my own, and one that my friends and I listened to and laughed about for days on end. And that ritual would be repeated for every album or song that Al came out with after that. Like a surgeon. I mean, in this world of extreme divisiveness, Weird Al brings us immeasurable laughter and joy, always. And to top it off, he's a hell of a nice guy. Coming up, it's Al and the stories behind some of his greatest songs, his parodies, with special guest artists reacting to his parodies on their actual songs. So let's get right into it. And you got an accordion. Tell me about the accordion story, how you discovered the accordion.
Well, it's similar to the way it was described in my biopic, although not exactly. There was, in fact, a door-to-door accordion salesman that came around. Actually, he was more selling lessons than he was accordions. He owned and operated a music conservatory that specialized in accordion lessons. Actually, accordion and guitar. But my parents, of course, made the decision that, young Alfred should take accordion lessons, of course. Why not? And it was that at an early age that, changed my life. My first accordion lesson was the day before my 7th birthday. And I took lessons for 3 years. And after that, I guess I got tired of taking lessons, or maybe got tired of the accordion. The accordion, was not a hip instrument. Yeah. And I think maybe my friends were making fun of me for playing. I don't remember exactly, but I decided to set it aside. And then a couple years later, I started playing by ear on my own. I would listen to my Elton John records or whatever was on the radio and started trying to mimic the chord changes and taught myself how to play rock and roll on the accordion. And it was still impossible for me to get into any of my friends' rock bands. But at least on my own, I was kind of like learning how to rock on the accordion.
16, you send in your first song to Dr. Demento. Like, tell me about that song and like, where did that come from where you decided, I'm going to send that in?
The first couple things I sent to Dr. Demento, he didn't even play. He had a contest when I was maybe 13 years old for Pico and Sepulveda, which was his theme song, Pico and Sepulveda.
Yeah.
Pico and Sepulveda, Pico and Sepulveda, Pico and Sepulveda.
It used to be, the intro and outro of every show. And he was soliciting for listeners to send their own versions of Pico and Sepulveda. So I got together with a bunch of friends of mine and we recorded our own version, which I'm sure was horrible. And that can't be verified because Dr. Demento tells me, oh, he just threw that away. That's in the garbage heap of history now.
Sure.
But that was the first thing I actually sent him. In fact, I got to give that to him in person because Dr. Demento did a after-school assembly at Linwood High School where I was a student. So I got to actually go up to him in person and meekly give him this cassette tape that I recorded. So that was my first actual, IRL contact with Dr. Demento. And then he wasn't really soliciting for people to just send him things in the mail outside of that contest. But I thought, well, why not? I'll give it a shot. And Dr. Demento heard one of my tapes that I recorded in my bedroom with my accordion. Again, terrible song, horribly recorded, couldn't sing, but he, here's the plus side of my parents giving me accordion lessons. He says, if it had been a kid playing the guitar, again, that would have gone right in the trash. But here was like a teenage kid somehow thinking was kind of cool playing the accordion.
Right.
He said, I'll give this kid a break. Why not?
You sent in Belvedere Cruising.
Yes.
About the family station wagon. I love this story about how you did My Bologna.
Hungry one, open up a package of My Bologna. Ooh, I think the toast is done.
I think December 1979, the Knack was doing a concert at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where I was getting my architecture degree. And that previous summer, I was doing the Weird Al show on the KCPR, the campus radio station. And My Sharona was a huge hit. Like literally every other call on the request line was for My Sharona. That was the reason that I decided to take my accordion across the hall into the manager's room and record My Bologna. And that bathroom recording, which I sent to Dr. Demento, it was sort of a viral hit back in the pre-viral days,
Yeah. Echo chamber of the restroom.
Yeah, I mean, everything sounds better in the bathroom, and it had that those acoustically perfect tiled walls. There is an actual plaque next to that bathroom saying that this is the place where we recorded My Bologna. So we recorded that, and it became a hit on the Demento show. And then a few months later, the Knack came to Cal Poly, did their show, and I didn't have backstage passes or whatever, but somehow I weaseled my way backstage because I wanted to meet the band. And I somehow got up next to Doug Feiger and said, "Hey, Doug, hi, I'm, Al Yankovic. I did My Bologna." And he's like, "Oh, you're the My Bologna guy." And he turns to the guy to his immediate right and says, "This is the guy that did My Bologna. You should put him out on Capitol Records." He was talking to Rupert Perry, the vice president of Capitol Records, who just, randomly happened to be at this show. And he said, "Oh, all right." And I kept, for weeks after that, I kept following up like, "So you said you were going to do a record, right?" And they finally did. And of course, for them, it was a big joke. It was a goof. They signed me to a contract. But it was for one single, and I don't think they ever anticipated, I'm sure they never anticipated they would ever work with me again. It was just something amusing to, the band got a kick out of it, so why not?
Yeah.
But it kind of really changed my look on life because I was getting escorted around the Capitol Records Tower in Hollywood. People were showing me off as like our newest recording artist. All the secretaries like, oh, nice to meet you. And I was seeing all these, gold albums and the Beatles everywhere. And I was thinking like, gosh, this is more fun than being an architect. Maybe I should think about this.
Yeah, I mean, you were in architecture school at the time,
I was
right?
just about to graduate. I did get my degree. But I can't say that I've really used it a whole lot.
My Bologna. My Bologna.
So tell me about like I Love Rocky Road and how that all came in the debut album.
I love Rocky Road, so won't you go and buy half a gallon, baby?
Between my graduating at the end of 1980 and my getting a record deal in 1982, I was, kind of hustling a little bit, trying to see if I can get a record deal happening. Got connected with my manager, Jay Levy, and he somehow was able to get a couple of the local radio stations in town to give a few spins for I Love Rocky Road. And this was not the album version. It was like a demo version that we had done prior to that. So it sounded okay, but not like record quality really. But they played it on the air on KIQQ, and every night they had sort of like Dr. Demento's funny top 10 or funny 5, they had like our 5 most requested songs of the night.
Right.
And there was like a certain hour that you could call in for that. So I would be on the phone, calling in over and over and over and changing my, could you play that Weird Al song?
So you were calling in for your own song. That's awesome.
I used to do that with Tower Records all the time. It was like on release day, every album, I'd always call it, do you have that new Crazy Al record? That's come in yet? I always like to check out of that. But so I got that probably mostly due to me that got on their top requested songs list for a few weeks in a row, and I got on a few people's radars, and we hit every record company in town. And the only one that expressed any real interest was Scotty Brothers. Everybody else was saying, oh, this is really funny. We love this, but, novelty music. Yeah, no, we want somebody that's going to be around for a while,
I love Rocky Road, so won't you go and buy half a gallon, baby?
This album comes out, I Love Rocky Road. It actually became one of the most played songs on a lot of radio stations at that time. And then I got to ask you about the Jack and Diane parody.
Okay.
Yeah,
we're digging deep now. We're digging deep.
Yeah. we got to have a little bit of both, the popular stuff and then the stuff for the mega fans. But yeah, Jack and Diane, you were going to do a parody of that.
I was going to do a parody, and it's just as well because it would be, certainly the most dated song in my catalog. But it was going to be a song about the royal wedding of Charles and Diana. So a little ballad about Chuck and Diane, a couple of British kids from the Palace of Buckingham, and it was a pretty clever little parody for what it was. But John Cougar Mellencamp at the time said no to it, and apparently because he was in the middle of negotiating like a Jack and Diane movie.
Yeah,
which we all remember, of course. I guess that never panned out, but that was the reason he turned it down. And in the meantime, I tried like several different. I did that kind of thing where I made it sound. It was like a pastiche. I made it sound like Jack and Diane, but not quite. And I did like 2 or 3 different iterations of that. And then finally I was like, no, I just got to make it a completely original song. And I made it like a blues number. But yeah, and ironically, I wound up singing a Jack and Diane parody on The Simpsons a few decades later.
Little ditty about Homer and Marge. Her heart was as big.
At this time when you had your first Hot 100 hit, I'm kind of a chart geek, and a lot of people that watch the show are back. Everybody remembers when Casey Kasem counted it down and all that kind of thing. When you had your first Hot 100 hit, number 63, Ricky, were you like kind of geeking out on that?
Oh,
were you looking at the charts and everything and following that?
I've always been a huge Billboard geek. I mean, when I was doing my campus radio show, the Billboard Hot 100 was, tacked up on the window there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's first thing you saw. So, I mean, even prior to that, I was bubbling under with another Rise of the Bus. I think I made it to number 103. Which, for me, that was a huge deal.
Yeah, it's a bubbling under chart,
Even getting mentioned in Billboard. I remember the first time I was ever mentioned in Billboard, they called me Weird Owl. But even that, I was like, oh, I exist.
It's another one rides the bus. Here is Weird Al Yankovic. Here he is, Weird Al.
In 3D comes out in 84. And this is where you blew up. I mean, this is where Eat It came out. At this time, Eat It, I mean, it became global. It hit number 36 in the UK. It hit number 1 in Australia. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Huge hit in Australia.
And Michael Jackson's Beat It hit number 3.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? And of course, hit number 12 here, and it became your biggest hit for a long time. When you hear a song, and this happened when the Weird Al cultural phenomenon happened, you know, when I was a kid. And I mean that all of my kids found you on their own. I was planning on like throwing catch with the baseball. This is Weird Al, guys. Check this out. This was part of your father's childhood, you know, that kind of thing. But they all found it, and they're different generations, because my second marriage is for both me and my wife. And when I married her, she had a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old. And then we have kids together, and they're 10 years behind those guys. So we have millennials, and then we have Gen Z. Mm-hmm. And all of them, girl and 3 boys, all found you on their own. Dad, you just got to see this fat video. This is so funny. And I'm like, I was going to share this with you, but I didn't think you were old enough to. Anyway, but this happened in Idaho, this cultural phenomenon of Eat It. Who is Weird Al? This is so cool. And after that, it became this thing of a song came out, you know, and we come up with our own parody. I wonder if Al will say this, and we try to, you know, top each other with whatever song. Does that happen to you when you first hear a song? Like, or, you know, where you have to hear it 4 or 5 times, you're like, and you hear it in your head? Or is it first time, or it probably is different with each song?
It's totally different each time. You know, sometimes it's immediate. More often than not, though, it's me like sitting down and just like spitballing like dozens of different, you know, variations on a theme. Like I used to be like now I do everything on my laptop, but back in the 80s and most of the 90s, I had one of those 3-ring notebooks like you'd have in high school with the little plastic dividers, like one divider for each song. And whenever I get an idea, I jot that down. So yeah, I mean, mostly I try to figure out what song would be a good candidate for a parody, what would be a good target. And then I try to think like, you know, what could I do with this? And sometimes, like you said, sometimes it comes to me in the car while I'm driving, just spontaneously. And sometimes it's me just hunkered over and just going through every possible iteration that exists.
But how did Eat It come to you? Like you knew that Michael Jackson was, I mean, Off the Wall had come out, you know, and at that point he wasn't the Michael Jackson, but he was building toward that. But as soon as Thriller came out, I mean, it was game over.
Yeah,
the biggest artist in the world.
No, I agree. It's hard to overstate how famous he was at that point in time, and as such, he was an obvious person to do a parody of. And up until that point, I'd been doing a lot of food-related songs. In fact, as part of my live show, we never recorded this as such, but I used to do the Fabulous Food Medley, which would change from tour to tour, which would feature, you know, food-related parodies of various artists.
Oh, here she comes. She's a spam eater.
End of 1983, I guess, I started doing Eat It. I remember I played that, I think at the Bottom Line shows that I did with Flo and Eddie back at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure if there was even a full song. It might have just been like a verse and a chorus.
It doesn't matter if it's for a long ride. Just eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it.
The medley's just like quick gag on to the next thing. But that got a huge reaction, and I was thinking, oh, you know, I should like see if Michael will let us clear this. And thankfully he did.
Just eat it. Your table manners are a
And the odd thing is, even after I recorded the 3D album, and even with Michael as big as it was back then, I was thinking, I don't know if I want to really be known for the parodies. Maybe we should have one of these originals be the first single. And thankfully, I was quickly talked out of that.
What was the song you were thinking about?
I think I was like pushing for Midnight Star, which is a nice enough song, but it's not Eat It.
You do the shot-by-shot remake of the video. Tell me about that.
That was fun. You know, it would have been easier with some of the tools that are available nowadays. But back at the time, I remember sitting in front of the TV set which I rented a VCR. I was born in the 1900s, let me put it that way. I would sit there and, no joke, with a Polaroid camera, I would take Polaroids of stills on the TV set. Because that was the easiest way to get like a still of anything on the TV. So our storyboards for the Eat It video were a series of Polaroid shots taken from the Beat It video. And then we would just refer to that. And I think we also had a VCR on set in case we really wanted to see how the action played out.
Yeah.
But we just made sure we had the reference material and it was very tightly storyboarded. And we just gave it our best shot.
Just have yourself the blame, so eat it. Just eat it.
Well, Eddie Van Halen's solo, Rick Derringer, I mean, he was a big part of those first classic albums. Trying to figure out how to put that together, that must have been amazing.
Yeah, Rick is like a true guitar god. I mean, he produced my first six albums. I'm so honored to have been able to work with him. And he played, Jim West, my then and current guitar player, has been on all the albums. But for the first couple albums, Rick, he's in the studio, so he's going to play guitar, Of
course.
And he wanted to take the guitar solo on Eat It. And I'll never forget this. I think he just did 1 or 2 takes of it, but and the whole solo is like, I don't know, 10 seconds long?
Right.
He started playing the solo, and by the end of the solo, he was drenched. I've never seen anything like it. He just put everything he had into it. He was worn out.
What blows my mind about this, I mean, the cultural phenomenon of Michael Jackson is you're able to get a hold of Michael, and he has such a great sense of humor that he's like, yeah.
Yeah, you never know until you ask, I guess.
Right.
It never hurts to ask. Yeah, I never anticipated that because, my first album did okay, but I was still sort of like this nerdy kid that was getting played on the Dr Demento show, basically. And Michael Jackson was Michael Jackson. Yeah. So we thought, they're not going to respond to us. They're going to ignore us. And within a couple of weeks, we got, a letter back saying, that sounds good. Let's do it.
I love it. What was his response after he saw it and everything?
I got to meet him once or twice in person, and he told me he really enjoyed the parodies, and he'd play them for his friends at the ranch. He couldn't have been sweeter.
You can't send it back, just eat it. Eat it.
But Rye the Kaiser, I got to ask you about Rocky 13 because I was talking to Jim Peterick about it. He said he laughed his head off when he heard that.
Rye or the Kaiser, they're on special tonight. If you want.
Weird Al, Rye the Kaiser.
The best.
What'd you think of that when that
at first,
happened?
when we got the request from Al's people, it was like, man, this is our grand anthem. And he's making it a song about a deli owner,
About Rocky, owning a deli later on in his years.
It's hilarious.
I know.
Stay away from the tuna. It smells funny today.
Yeah.
And do you want your corned beef on the rye or the Kaiser? Ba, ba, ba.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So today, his deli comes first.
At the end of the day, my manager called and said, you know what, Jim, you got to approve this. Michael Jackson just approved Eat It.
Yeah.
Just eat it. Eat it. Get yourself
If he can do it, you can do it. I called Frankie, no problem.
Oh, yeah.
So every royalty statement, I see it near the end. Theme from Rocky 13, X amount of dollars.
Obviously, the Rocky theme was Eye of the Tiger was a huge hit. And maybe even more important than that, they were also a Scotty Brothers artist. Survivor was the other big act on Scotty Brothers.
Oh,
so there was
that's true.
There was a little bit of a synchronicity going on there. And I came up with the idea of what would the theme song be for Rocky 20 years from now, where they're on their 12th sequel, and what are they going to do with the theme? Oddly enough, I think one of the Rocky sequels, he was working in a deli or ran a deli or something like that. So a little prescient there.
Hulkamania 2024 came out.
So you're a tough guy, like it really rough guy, just can't get enough guy, just always.
And then the new tour as well.
Yes, so we are touring next summer. It's the Bigger and Weirder 2025 tour. And one of the reasons it's bigger is
Yeah.
because our band is literally twice as big for this tour. Instead of having me with 4 guys, than my original 4 band members, we're adding 4 more people. So it's sort of, it's a bigger band. And we're, unlike the Vanity tours, we're back to playing the hits. We're doing the parodies. We're doing the full show, the costume changes and the props and the big screen. So it's like the old school multimedia extravaganzas of days gone by, bringing that back, making it bigger than ever.
That was only part 1 of our interview. Part 2 will be coming soon with more artists' reactions on Al's parodies of their songs. Most of them say what Tommy James told me. But what was cool is that Weird Al did I Think I'm a Clone Now.
I think I'm a clone now. There's always 2 of me just a hanging.
He was great, Wood.
Oh, that's incredible.
See, that's how you know you've really made it.
When Weird Al does
Yes.
your song. So catch Weird Al this coming summer, 2025. His tour was just announced. He's playing 70 shows across the U.S. and Toronto. Click on the link below to get your tickets. It's a can't miss for sure. Thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Al and all these songs. We're going to have another part of this interview coming out, not just this one. So look for that in the future. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Let's have a great discussion about Al below. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.